Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. And guys, do I have a crazy but informative upload to share with you. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button. Takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of these informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? These things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? Alright, so before we go any further, I just want to thank a very special subscriber. I'm not going to share her last name. I'm just going to share her first name, Mary. Mary, I want to thank you for helping me and making it possible that I got my copy of the Solomon Island Mysteries. And as you guys can see, this book is out of print. And it is a very hard book to find. This thing is pristine. And it actually, the Hawaii State Public Library was having a book sale. And she found it and sent me some money to buy it. And I was like, holy cow, thank you, Mary. I really love books. I love the information that this book has especially, and I just wanted to give Mary a very special thank you. So thank you. There's a few things that today's upload is going to cover, and one of those things is some information out of that book. All of this research started when a gentleman reached out to me sharing his experience in the Solomon Islands. I had no idea this book even existed. I had never heard of Maris ever. And the second I looked into Maris Borean, I was just like, holy cow. And then to read the book, it is not just, like the title states, accounts of giants and UFOs in the Solomon Islands. So you would think that every chapter would just be a kind of your typical book that researchers put out, you know, where it's just chapter 1, experience 2, right through. No, this is research with experiences. And to be quite frank with you guys, it is right up there with this book. And this is probably one of the greatest books that I have in my library. Behold the Pale Horse by Bill Cooper. That book right there, Solomon Islands, it's up there with the Skinwalkers and the Pentagon. It's on the path of immortals, you know, it is. And it's a shame that it's buried. It's a shame that not many people know about it. And it's really a shame that it's not in publication anymore. And there's a reason for that. And I think that main reason is the last chapter of the book. The battle of evermore, a secret war. A good majority of human beings have at one stage or another in their lives seen UFOs that they could not explain as being man-made or known current level of technology, which apart from the technology the clandestine one-world government mob has hidden from humanity, would be summed up by a space shuttle. So what are these UFO vehicles? Who makes them? And where do they go when they are not flying around? There have been many times, even in recent years, where thousands of people at a time have seen UFOs, but these sightings have never made it to the world news. And sometimes, when these fantastic events do get broadcast live over the television, their transmission is mysteriously cut, and they are never heard of again. Even though they are a talking point amongst the people who witnessed these UFOs, the subject is soon lost to other mundane facets of life. As a hypothetical example, early one morning, the director of SETA, Search of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, is driving to his radio telescope when he saw a UFO fly past and land on the road in front of his car. Where he had now stopped, two alien beings walked down from the UFO stairs, approached his car, and introduced themselves. With that, these aliens then walked back to their UFO and flew away at the speed of thousands of miles an hour. Absolutely blown away by the experience, the director started his car up and continued up the mountain. When he arrived at his workplace, however, he simply asked his radio telescope employees, "Any luck last night?" The point I'm making is this. Even though in his heart he has known all his life that there is something else out there, if he had taken that matter further to his superiors with film of the entire episode, he would have been told to forget about it, keep looking to outer space for them. And if he kept going on about this matter, he would be fired from his job or moved to another government department. Or, more than likely, if he persisted, he would be accidentally killed. And I am sure this happens a heap of times. Humanity is and has been totally deceived by organized design when it comes to some of these undiscovered mainstream science, subterranean civilizations from millennia ago to the present day. This also applies to some of the giant humanoid species. Some of these Hades-dwelling subterranean extraterrestrial species are what the Christian Bible mythology refers to as the devil and his angels. These days, however, this deception towards mankind is being manipulated by a long-established worldwide secretive Homo sapien group that have, to some degree, allied themselves with some of these evil subterranean species to share in their ultimate ungodly earthly goals. And from an ongoing galactic war perspective, to eventually rule the entire planet before they try to leave for other parts of the galaxy. There are very good reasons why this has not happened yet, and to my knowledge, one of them has everything to do with extraterrestrial, who also, through DNA changes, experimentally made Homo sapien man and some species beneath our planet what they are today. Over the years, whilst forced to address this issue, I separately arrived at a similar conclusion to other interested parties, but there are some things I differ in. For example, the notion that all extraterrestrial subterranean civilizations and species are nice guys. I may be wrong, but nice guys don't use their UFOs to fry people for no reason. And there are plenty of examples of this, apart from the Solomon Island case, where Festus' father got zapped. This kind of subterranean behavior may be unique to the Solomon Islands, but I am sure far worse goes on, not only there, but also in parts of the world. Anyway, that's not good. I also defer with some others in regard to the notion that the secretive Homo sapien one-world government has all of the extraterrestrial technology. But once again, I may be wrong, though I hope not. I just don't believe defectors. But I do agree about the absolutely evil disregard the secret one world government has for humanity, and that for a long time this evil mob deemed the people of the world to be a usable and expandable commodity. And that all of the extraterrestrial, including the half-human reptilian, reptoid, and others are semi-allied with, have determined that this warmongering club is not welcome in the galaxy, even though the reptoids want the same outcome for us surface dwellers as the one world government. Although the secretive mob have most of the technology to get to other parts of the galaxy very quick, because of their wicked ways and motives, extraterrestrials thwart every effort that they make when using their man-made UFO vehicles and other means of transportation to jump a bit of space and time. And thank God, obviously, they don't have all of the technology, and that must annoy this worldwide devilish mob to no end. While the Cold War nuclear treaty between the United States and the Soviets through the 50s to the 80s was escalating in one way, during that same period another Cold War was escalating between breakaway ultra-secretive groups within the United States government and military, and some subterranean extraterrestrials. Ironically enough, between the 50s and 80s is when the Dulce Wars and the Groom Lake War supposedly happened. It's... I stress that what is written here is only my point of view, and is more than likely to differ slightly from those who know finer details. As for the way the rest of mankind may see it one day, after this series of world wars, the well-hidden one-world government that now covertly controls secret parts of the U.S. government, military or American people, and most other countries of the world, and that now has extraterrestrial technology, is that same clandestine club that during the 30s, with their equivalent British counterparts, covertly sent many gold-laden U.S. and British submarines to German shores to help build up Hitler's military regime, supposedly against the Soviets. Look into that. This gold, within several years, led an economic bankrupt country from 1932 onwards to become the leading world enemy, with an army whose rapid buildup nobody seems to be able to explain, not to mention how it gained its wealth in such a short time. This organized war machine caused the death of over 50 million people and decades of lasting sorrow, but also definitely made a lot of money for many, including those club members within the United States, Papal Rome, and others around the world. Over these last decades, this insidious worldwide ruling mob, using many more agencies than the CIA, have caused scores of war around the world, resulting in the death of many more million. I heard someone once say that they hope of all the world died with Roosevelt. That's not true. I heard someone once say that the hope of the world died with Roosevelt. That's not true. It is these same now transformed wolves in sheep's clothing that, apart from having extraterrestrial technology, secretly orchestrated more than once a mood of terror among their own people, and of that world incited worldwide fear with their phony war on terror to further destabilize the Middle East and many other countries in the world. And if there is any truth in it, they are more likely to be the 666, which is prophesied in their own Christian Bible. Even Mother Nature has learnt the evil often poses as something good for the rest of the world. Their Catholic bosses of old buggered up, though as centuries ago they should have cut that 666 bit out of their book. Possibly the Club of Rome could send a letter of notice to the Vatican about this matter. At one moment, the one world government is strenuously trying to influence world politics in the name of their ungodly desires. The same mob, just as they did before World War II, is hell-bent on bringing this world to rubble with the next World War series so they can pick up the pieces and rule the entire world. Then, spread throughout the galaxy. To do so, they would have to make dirty deals with the devil and his mates. It's bad luck for them, as their sordid love-hate alliance will not last. And, as we will see within the next decade, they picked the wrong side. So a lot of the rest of this is all stuff that really goes hand in hand with what Bill Cooper talks about and many other people who have done their research on these clandestine one world ruling factions of whatever alien agenda and such. And it's crazy that that's the end of this. Is that I didn't read the whole thing, but that is the end of this book, the Solomon Island Mysteries. And throughout this book, you just hear about, different experiences, UFO giants and such. And it is just truly amazing, truly awesome, because it really does fit with so much that I've shared on this channel. Not just Dogman, but the Reptilian, the Dulce, and that's why this book to me is really amazing. So if you guys can find a copy of it, you guys can get, I want to share with you so you guys can read this book. There's a website, called bookshelf.vitalsource.com. And you can type in this book, Solomon Island Mysteries, in that, bookshelf.vitalsource.com. And I think I paid $5 for to have the opportunity to read the book, because I never thought I'd have my own copy, to be honest with you. So I did. I paid the $5 to read the book online, and then I ended up printing it out because, like I said, I never thought I'd have my own copy. But, I mean, you guys can go to that website, print it out, read it, however you want to do it. To me, it's worth that $5, especially if you're going to print it out, because the amount of information is just mind-blowing. To be honest, I would have been fine with the printed out copy, but when Mary contacted me and said, this is, what I want to do, and I want to do this for you, I had to say, and I had to take advantage of the offer, because she had already sent the money and told me, this is where to get the book. So once again, thank you, Mary, and on to the next part of today's upload. One last thing I want to share is this is rather interesting. I find it very, very interesting. Is the this one sentence here. Let me find it. So this one bit of the last chapter of the book, some of the technology advanced giant race species from underneath the Solomon Islands and the remainder of the planet are also humanity's enemies. And due to their alliance with the multitude of subterranean extraterrestrial species, during this next world war, mankind and extraterrestrial will meet head on. Hence, one of the many reasons for the Australian multinational force being ordered to stay for an indefinite occupation of the Solomon Islands. So, what he's saying is, it's pretty evident if you really think about anything ever shared about these creatures, these, especially if you think about Kirk's experience when he was in Mount Shasta. He was that camper, had been camping, heard some strange noises. The next thing he's in his tent, the next thing he wakes up and he's in this kind of subterranean chamber, a very sterile, clean environment. He's sitting on a table and he's escorted and walked around this long hallway, and he sees this angelic creature, maybe a demon, maybe an angel, who knows, but it's being suspended in air with some sort of chains in the form of a crucifix. It's suspended. Two giants shackled to the ground, Dogman, in these enclosures, almost like a zoo. He's walking through and he's glass enclosures and he's witnessing. So why would these alien races, these draconian reptoid and greys, have these creatures held in captivity? Well, because they want to use them for what their value is. Strength, technology, information, knowledge. All right, let's move on. And it's very interesting that in that book, in the Solomon Island Mysteries, there's a chapter, I believe it's chapter 2 or 3, and it's called Snakes and Dragons, or the Dragon Snake. The Dragon Snake. So if that's not, enough to, because right here, what I'm going to share with you right now is absolutely mind-blowing. These are case files. Reptilian case files. Date, April 7th, 1999. Time, 7:55. Remote name, 209.179.11.188. Comments. Having been within arm length of reptoids, I did get to observe various details. They wore no clothes, but they did have a utility belt with several unusual objects on it. One device had a small orange light on it. When this is touched, they simply disappear. I've quickly moved into spots where the reptoids were instantly after they disappear. There is no temperature anomaly in that zone. I had expected it to be cooler in the area. If they were draining the energy to manifest, like happens in various kinds of apparitions, they did change the density at times. They made heavy footsteps in the hallway on wooden floors. They could walk through walls. They glow an electrical blue-greenish color, like some kind of aura. The head is similar to a reptilian humanoid on the TV program Babylon 5. The head was more cone-shaped, like the Yeti kind of has. In fact, the reptoids are built like Bigfoot, and one has scales, and other has hair. The eyes are slit serpent-like, very strange, flame-like and flickering. 3 fingers, and an imposing thumb, with claw-like talons on fingers and feet. A small tail, large scales, like a breastplate on its chest. Scales were smaller than the body, where the body is flexible. like around the elbow. The scales were like a snake. I guess that is why some call them the serpent race. The scales were mostly green and very dark green. On each scale, a variation of color. They are telepathic, very quick thoughts. Ideas driven by images in geometric impressions, not a linear form of communication. Like words, more of a symbol or image language. They do react to our thoughts. They can overwhelm you with data. It seems like thought compression. It can take you a long time to assimilate their transmission and integrate it. After a while, I saw the language as fractal, hyperspheres or thought form constructs to pass data. These sucks are data freaks, highly intellectual, limited emotional response, hate, fear, and a short circuit, confusion state, mild panic. You can think or do the unexpected, and they do freak out. So stay calm and center. They respect that. Then they think you are dangerous. But if you fear them, they will taunt your weakness and will disrespect you. Careful, don't disrep them either. They are no better than you. I glean they want something we have, something in our soul nature. We can shift to theta balance and link to the source. They are too far into analyzing, unbalanced. They like drugs like cocaine, opium, magic mushrooms, and milking humans for endorphins. They cannot get into your mind without you having an opportunity to get into their reptilian brain too. They know a lot about the outward form of creation. They know the force, but behind that is the source. They need us. We don't need them. They will appear in England to Tibet in August of 99. They will return 13 years later in 2012. So if it's every 13 years, 2025. This is the 20th year since I first saw them in 1979. They are here. I know. I waited 10 years before. I originally went public. The reptoids are okay, but even they fear the returning Draco, the horned and winged. These are more reddish. The Draco Prime are white albino. Welcome to my world, Tal. Case File 4, title, Alien Abductions in the Gingerbread House, Dr. Carla Turner. A man in his late 40s came to us to explore several alien-related events in his life, and in this interview he told of a strange, although not apparently alien-oriented episode that had haunted him since childhood. When he was 10 years old, his grandmother came to visit him at home, and since the house was small, she shared his bed on the first night of her visit. During the night, the boy was awakened to a loud male voice. He couldn't understand what the voice was saying, but it sounded angry and was addressing the grandmother lying beside him. The next morning, he asked his grandmother, "What was that voice in the bedroom last night?" His grandmother, with tears in her eyes, pulled him tightly to her and said, "That was the devil." She said nothing more about the episode, but she did insist that her son take her back to her own home immediately. It was an unreasonable request, and her son tried to talk her out of it, but the grandmother was adamant. Finally, her son agreed to take her home the following day. The entire family made the trip of over 100 miles back to the grandmother's farm, and within an hour of their arrival, the grandmother suffered a massive stroke and died. Ever since that event, the man had felt a heavy burden of guilt associated with his grandmother's death, yet There's no no conscious reason for him to have felt that way. The entire event was poignant and mystifying. But in the alien encounters he had subsequently undergone, he had felt that these aliens were his friends and were helping him by expanding their psychic abilities. A regression session was arranged, and in the course of hypnosis, he was asked to look at a childhood experience. What he recalled was an abduction in which he and his grandmother had taken to a spacecraft in the company of reptilian aliens. He remembered the aliens telling his grandmother that they were interested in learning about her knowledge and her knowledge of medical herbs. And they offer in exchange medical information of their own. They gave the boy and the grandmother a liquid to drink, explaining that it was beneficial and would make the grandmother feel young and attractive again. Soon, both of them drank the liquid, and the man remembered seeing his grandmother, indeed looking much younger. That was the extent of that recollection. Both he and Miss Bartholic, who was conducting the regression, were puzzled at this, because there was nothing in the episode to account for the guilt he had felt about his grandmother's passing. So, Miss Bartholic deepened the man's trance level and asked him to look at it again with much clearer vision. And what he recalled was much more disturbing. So, what else happened and transpired in that was he then was put into more hypnosis. And some very graphic essay happened to him and his grandmother by these reptilian aliens. And that's what he remembered. And it was very traumatic because after realizing what had happened as a child, him hearing the devil, that's when his grandmother wants to leave. So this event happened that night. He heard those voices, and then his grandmother wants to go home because she knew something very bad was going to happen. This is very, very creepy right here. One such creature that literally tortured a female abductee who was taken to a multi-level underground system below Camp Hero at Montauk was described as follows. I will provide the only description of the creature itself, an alien that she encountered inside the base, which is said to be maintained by European and American Nazis working under the Bavarian Thule Society. However, I will not release any personal details about this woman in honor of her wishes to keep the overall details of the abduction confidential. What I see is a creature 6 to 7 feet tall. His ears are large and pointed at the top. His eyes are a bright yellow/gold and seem to glow. He has pointed teeth and a large wrinkle on his forehead, and he has a tail. He is coming toward me. I have never been so scared in my life. He comes to a foot from the table, and then essays. But, you know, these creatures, this Montauk reptilian, 6 to 7 feet, well proportioned, except the shoulders. They were very broad in comparison to its waist, well-muscled torso. Some kind of appendage that reminds me of wings protruding from behind his shoulders. So it is a Draco, or a Draconian, which means horned and winged. Who do we associate with horns and wings? The devil. there's what seems to be a tail. Tail would be 3 to 5 feet. Skin texture is green and grayish, dark, oily. It emits a odor that is putrid. Putrid. His chest, or its chest, reminded me of a armor, and its face and head. The size of its head is in proportion to its body. There is no hair. There is a large ridge or flap of skin on the forehead, just above the eyes, extending across the brow. The eyes are yellowish gold and glow, slightly almond-shaped with pupil vertical slits. The mouth and nose protrude slightly, giving an appearance of a snout. The teeth are pointed and sharp. The ears are oversized in proportion to its head, and have tips. So pointed ears. And that's crazy, because this is coming from a file that I was sent back in the day, about 6 years ago. That I got an email from a bunch of, one email that had a slew of things attached to it, and then a request for my address, and I got a USB stick with a bunch of information, and I printed out this, which is Reptilian Alien Case Files. There's a ton of them. But here's what's interesting is, if you think about what else do we associate with wings, a broad chest that is very muscular, pointed ears, gargoyles, a Mothman, obviously the winged Draco. So, I mean, these things have been talked about for centuries and for time immemorial, I guess. You know, it's just it's very scary. So that last chapter in the Solomon Islands mysteries coincides with everything that I've been reading and researching and sharing here with you guys for a couple of years now. But this book came out in 2009. I wish I had started this channel so much sooner, or so much longer, or whatever you want to say, because just imagine how deep we could be. So today's last part of the upload it ties into all of this, and it happens to deal with, I guess you could call this a Dogman, if in fact you view it that way. It was a 8-foot tall humanoid canine-like creature, but unlike any kind of Dogman experience I've ever heard of. So it occurred in Seattle, Washington in 1988. There is a location in Seattle. There are guided tours in Seattle of the underground city there. And there is 2, but there are other places to get. There are other locations you can go to get to the underground, and they are not safe. So apparently this guy had been homeless and had been wandering around Seattle, came across an old bookstore, which is no longer in existence, and there was a cafe near it. And he had noticed that there was a space in the sidewalk that looked kind of like a grate where he could lift it up and possibly find like a heating duct or an exhaust duct from the buildings to keep warm. And that's all he was looking for. So he opens this kind of sliding part of the metal grate and proceeds to go down into the stairwell. He finds this rubbled stairwell, and it went at least 4 sets of stairs. He's not homeless now. This was when he was younger, and he was a drug addict at that time. So he estimates with the steps being about 54 feet underground. He said that he knows, being that he's in recovery and has been for 30-something years now. But he's been on guided tours in hopes of seeing what he saw this night. But he knows that these guided tours go deeper. So he knows this part was not connected because he's gone to look for what he saw that night. So he raises this kind of space in the sidewalk looking for some sort of heat. And as he proceeds to go, he realizes there's a stairwell down there. He is only equipped with a lighter. So he lights his lighter and he pulls the grate closed so he wouldn't get caught or in trouble. And if he did find heat, he could at least keep the weather off of him. It was, windy and chilly, especially that time of year. And he proceeds to go down these stairs. Well, he starts to burn his finger on his lighter, and he makes kind of a makeshift torch. He takes a chunk of his jacket, and he's got an old kind of rain jacket. Nothing fancy and nothing, just he ripped a strip of his jacket and kind of wrapped it around something he found on the floor of this subterranean city under Seattle. And he continues to, he's like in awe. He can't see very good. He's got maybe a 6 to 7 foot kind of view of where he's at. And he proceeds to walk and look, and he notices that it is a little warmer down there. About 15 degrees warmer, which he found a little odd. So he's kind of like, all right, well, I can stay here, and go out during the day, and let's see how far, this goes. He's always heard about the underground cities or city under Seattle. And he said, well, maybe I can find a little like old storefront or something that I can call home for the time being, that nobody will bother me. I'll be safe. I'll be out of the elements, and I'll be safe from people. And he proceeds to go through this subterranean levels, and he comes to this kind of rubbled wall, and he starts to dig a little bit because he can see that there is another kind of portion of the hallway. He digs through, and he's actually where he's at. He realizes that he is in a building. He's not in the streets. He's not in, because there's part of this city that underground that is actually streets, old streets with storefronts. So like you can step out of a storefront and be underground, and have all of you know, right now, Seattle above you, and not even realize people up there, you know, where we are, you know, don't realize there's a whole freaking city underneath. And that's what he realized. He's like, holy shit, I'm actually in a building. And he digs and he realizes that, all right, this is just a wall. And he crawls through. And he gets to another kind of storefront. And he realizes that it's warmer here. And he's like, this is really strange. Why is it warmer here? It's, you know, 10, 15 degrees warmer back there. It's another 5 to 10 degree jump right here. And it's not making sense to him. He's not, you know, yes, he's a heroin addict, but he's not dumb. You know, he's got an addiction. You know, it doesn't mean he's dumb. So he enters this kind of building, the next building over, because all he did was kind of dig through the wall that had crumbled a little bit. And he's standing in this kind of vacant storefront. And he looks kind of out and around. And he sees that he can go out of the building. And he proceeds to go into what is the old walkway. And he's standing in the walkway is only like 10 feet. 10 feet wide. And there's another doorway right here. So he's like just came out of a doorway. And there's another doorway here. So it's like a sidewalk essentially. But it's a walkway that would be in between two buildings. So not an alley, but an actual like where you would walk through. I know it's kind of sounds strange that it's not an alley because it's not. It essentially could be, but alleys aren't usually, you know, as long as a city block, a couple city blocks. You know, this is designed for people to walk away from traffic. And he gets to this little walkway and he hears somebody talking. And he's like, am I imagining this? And he follows the words that he's hearing. He cannot make out what he's hearing. And he stops in front of another kind of rubbled building front. And this one is severely damaged. Like there is a lot of danger. You know, anybody with any kind of sense wouldn't go in here. But he did because he could hear people talking. So maybe there's someone I know in here. He doesn't hear two people talking. He only hears one person talking. And he kind of enters this little room. And his torch is not as bright as it was. It's starting to flicker out. And he's now got to use his lighter. He's got his torch in one hand that's not bright at all. So he lights his lighter and he sees a shadow and a silhouette of something. He gets his lighter lit completely. And what he sees doesn't make sense to him because he sees a kind of silhouette of a canine-like head with large ears and a large muzzle, very similar to a German Shepherd kind of shadow. And he sees that its mouth is moving. And he's very confused. He thinks at this point that he may be getting dope sick and hallucinating, but it's never happened to him before. You know, he's like, this has never happened to me before. He's like, I know, you know, I'm going to need to, get healthy, but this has never happened. So he yells out, "Who's there?" And as he does, yell out, "Who's there?" and who are you talking to? And this voice very clearly now says, "I've been talking to you this whole time." And he calls it by his name. He, says his name. And he said, "How do you know my name? Where are you?" And he says, "I'm right here." That's what he hears. "I'm right here." And he sees in front of him, because now his torch has lost its is burned this little strip of cloth that he's had. And he's just got his lighter, which is now cherry hot, burning his thumb. "I'm right here." And he says, "Who are you?" And he sees these orange ember-like eyes in front of him, and he's looking up at them. And they are at least 2 feet taller than he is, and he's 6 feet in height. And this voice, he says, says, "I've been waiting for you." And he said, "Well, how do you know who I am?" And he just says, "We know who you are." And he's confused because, he's thinking he's hallucinating. He's like, never had a hallucination being dope sick. And as a recovering junkie myself, I don't think I've ever hallucinated being dope sick. And there were times that I've woke up sick. Some of the worst pain ever was waking up and not having my fix. And, having to wait until your dealer can meet you or whatever. And he lights his lighter, and because now it's cooled off a little, and standing in front of him is this werewolf / dogman like creature. And it's this kind of brownish tan, like beautiful brown color. There's no mats. It's not your typical matted dogman. Its fur kind of gleams in the light of his lighter. There's no kind of foul smell coming from this creature standing in front of him, talking to him. Not through telekinesis or whatever, telepathically, but verbally. Like, he's witnessing this dogman-like creature open its mouth and vocalize to him. And he's just in shock. He has no idea what the hell is going on. And he says, "How do you know who I am? How do you know anything about me? I've never seen you. I've never done anything for anything like you to know who I am." And he says to him, "You are special." And he kind of looks at him like, "And you are special, and you will be something very special very soon. And you will be healthy and whole." And he kind of scoffs at this. And he says, "What is so funny?" And his name again. And he said, "You don't know who I am, and that you are a hallucination." And it puts its hand on his shoulder. And he does it aggressively. There's no aggression. And he said, "The second his hand touched my shoulder, And he's not telling me this. This is an actual account in this file that I got. Puts his hand on his shoulder and he feels this kind of tranquilness, this just kindness all in one. And he said, silly human, I and we, my kind, have been here for thousands of years, and as long as the first humans walked this earth, we were here. Many of us, and many of my kind, and many other versions of us came from somewhere else. So, is this an alien? Is it a hallucination? But he can feel it touching him. So, and then it says, we've been here for thousands of years since humanity first came or first evolved or whatever. Since God created us, I'm not even going to debate in that, but I'm just saying that's a long freaking time. But we have the Anunnaki and others have said that, these reptilian dog-like creatures, supposedly Bigfoot was created by these alien races to harvest gold underneath Mount Shasta. That's an actual I hate saying story, but an actual kind of story. And passed down generations. So there's got to be some sort of credence to it. Like there's got to be some sort of, because many people have said that. I've heard it for as long as I can remember. I remember Leonard Nimoy talking on the show he had from the 80s about gold and Bigfoot. So this creature then touches his shoulder. He gets this overwhelming feeling of just kind of a warmth and joy and this and that. And he's got doubt though, because he's a junkie. He's a homeless junkie. His, self-worth and self-esteem is gone. And slowly, after this meeting, like he described it, he said it was 8 feet in height. He wasn't dark brown. He wasn't black. It was this kind of like caramelized color, this very soft brown. There was no mats. It was very the hair gleamed. He had, 5 digits on his hand with an opposable thumb. And he did have claws on the end, but when it did touch him, it didn't dig its claws into him. But the thing that he remembers the most vividly out of this is, yes, he did see it with the lighter. And he could see these ember-colored eyes. They're the color of like when a fire is going out, that orange color that's on that last piece of coal. But what he really remembers vividly out of all of this is when he first saw the shadow. And he saw this German Shepherd wolf-like canine silhouette of a head. And he couldn't really see much of the shoulders because it was standing sideways. So it was actually standing probably in front of him and he didn't see it. But he could see the shadow of it. And he said, I'll never forget. As it's talking, I can see the shadows. It's moving its muzzle like it is using its vocal cords and whatever. And a couple of years later, he ends up getting sober. And when he was at a rehab. He had gone to a 30-day treatment center. And strangely enough, a counselor there said something so similar to what this creature, this alien, this Dogman, this what, said to him, is that he is special and he is going to be something very soon. And it was just, and all counselors do say, they try to feed us that self-worth that we lost, that self-esteem. They help build it back for us. And you've got to put the hard work in. Like, I'll be sober April 24th for 9 years. I don't drink. I don't smoke weed. The only thing I do is caffeine and nicotine. That's my first. I stopped using April 4th. My first clean urinalysis was April 24th. And the last day I ever used was April 4th. I put everything down that morning when I went, and I was like, I'm done. And I went and got help from a doctor. And, so I know that they'd help build our self-esteem, but he never forgot that. And after that, he then became a drug and alcohol counselor. And he said, I truly, to this day, believe that I ran into this alien being, and he knew that I was going to be beneficial to other people's lives and help them, because he said that to me. And now here I am, an alcohol counselor at an inpatient facility, helping hundreds, if not thousands of people throughout my many years doing this. And every day I go into work, I have that sensation that creature or that alien is watching me from somewhere and knows what I am doing, because he told me that essentially this is what you will be doing. Not that you will be an alcohol counselor, but you are going to be beneficial and never give up on yourself. And he, describes this caramel brown colored fur, 8 feet in height, ember colored eyes, very large pointed ears like a German shepherd, a large muzzle. He could see its teeth. It did have a tail and, opposable thumb with claws, but it did not dig them into him. And how did it know? He will never know. But he has a feeling that for whatever reason, this creature, maybe during one of his usages, maybe he was, nodding off in an alleyway and this thing saw him and chose him. But he knows and feels like this thing had chosen him. And in Sumerian texts and old scrolls and stuff, they talk about a dog-headed race of alien that helped humanity. Supposedly, per Marco Polo and other historical events, Marco Polo, Alexander the Great, all these, explorers and conquerors, supposedly these dog-headed people lived amongst humanity for thousands of years, and being that we are and who we are and what we are, which is not all humanity is this way, but the majority of humanity is this way, is aggressive and greedy and always looking out for number one. And they eventually upset the tide with these dog-headed race of creatures. And they eventually said, we want nothing to do with humanity, and left, stopped dealing with humanity, and then did start fighting with humanity. And then eventually just kind of disappeared. Isn't it interesting that in Danny Van Drimmeny's book, Them and Us, that Danny Van Drimmeny talks about a mass extinction that almost occurred to humanity, but then 1,000-something years later, we wiped out the Neanderthal. Why? Because we eventually became a warring tribe of freaking hominid that had more numbers, had possibly better technology and better use of weapons for war. So if we took out, at a very low bottleneck for humanity, took out the majority of Neanderthal left, would it be that hard to take out a couple of villages of these peaceful human dealing with dogmen-like creatures that at one point talked, at one point traded with humanity? Like, you can look this up. There is actually information out there talking about Alexander the Great and Marco Polo, specifically talking about he went up this kind of hill into this village and saw these race of dog-headed humanoids that were trading trinkets and other spices and shit with humans, living peacefully and harmoniously until humanity, being the greedy bastards that we are, fucked them over. And then they just said, we don't want any more part of this. And maybe that's why those dogmen that people run across are so aggressive. Is one, just like humans, a human child will always more than likely be afraid of the dark and always imagine a creature, and it will for some reason always be hairy and violent and aggressive. And that's just buried into our genome. So wouldn't it for them as well? I mean, to me, that makes a little bit of sense. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's upload, the tie-ins that I did with the alien case files, reptilian and Sumerian text, and the Solomon Island mysteries. A lot of information, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I'd like to thank you all for supporting this channel, because it is your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go. And honestly, what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is treated with the respect that we all deserve. And that is appreciated. I really do appreciate it. So please, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. And until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.